Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to this interactive teleconferencing program. We are basically dealing with a marketing course in the management program on marketing of services. That's MS65. Before I move over to this specific topic, this specific course which we will be discussing in this session as well as the next session, that's for the next 90 minutes, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the marketing discipline per se in the management program. Those of you who have joined MBA program or a specialization diploma in marketing would be the target audience for this particular program. In the marketing stream of the management program, right now we have total 10 courses on offer. One, of course, is the basic marketing course, that is MS6. That's the basic course which everyone has to do who will be doing MBA plus anyone who is doing PGDIM. Then we have got 9 specialization level courses in the marketing stream, that is MS61, which is consumer behavior, MS62 product management, MS62 is sales management, MS63 is product management, MS64 is international marketing, then MS65, which is the course which we are going to take up today, that is marketing of services. These 5 courses are available in the first semester. As you would be aware, from 2007 onwards, we have split these specialization level courses. So marketing, we have got 9 courses, out of which 5 courses, that MS61 to 65, are on offer in the first semester, whereas the remaining 4 courses, that is MS66, which is marketing research, MS68, which is advertising management, MS611, that is rural marketing, and MS612, that is retailing. So these 4 courses are on offer in second semester. That means in January to June semester, these 4 courses are not on offer, and only MS61 to 65, those 5 courses are on offer. Now coming to this particular course, MS65, which we are going to discuss today, I have not selected any particular block or unit as a theme for discussion. Rather, what I will be doing is, I will be giving you a broad overview of marketing of services course. I can put it this way, that those who have already completed or are on the verge of completion of this course, for them also it's relevant, and for those who are yet to start studying this course, for them also it would be relevant. So it will be a sort of a recap for those who have already studied, and those who have not, for them it will give a bird's eye view of the course on marketing of services. Now, why a separate course on marketing of services? The first and basic foremost question, why do we require a separate course on marketing of services? We already have a basic course on marketing, we have different courses in specialization on marketing, so why there is a need for a separate course on marketing of services? Now if you look at the economies of different nations, or rather let us start from India. Why to talk of international economies? Right now India's GDP is almost touching towards $1 trillion. And do you have an idea? Any idea of the contribution of service sector to this GDP? Traditionally, we have been an economy which is dominated by agriculture. Today also, a vast majority of people, more than 50% of the people basically derive their livelihood, they work in sectors related to agriculture. But as far as GDP is concerned, agriculture doesn't even contribute to 1/4 of the GDP in our economy today. And so is the case of manufacturing. So it's essentially the service sector which today contributes almost 60%. That means 3/5 of the GDP of Indian economy comes from service sector. And that's the case of almost all developed economies. For example, United States, almost 75% to 80% of the GDP is contributed by services sector. In fact, academicians and researchers have studied how economies basically transcend from being agriculture dominated to manufacturing dominated to services dominated. As economies develop, from being underdeveloped to developing to developed economies, the role or the share of services in the GDP keeps on increasing. So most of the Western economies today, you talk of United States, Canada, UK, Germany, France, in almost all the cases, service sector contributes something between 60 to 80% of the GDP. So that's one of the reasons for the growing importance of a course on services. But that's not the only reason. Even in the manufacturing sector, you require services. There are certain manufacturing companies who even sell services as a separate product. For example, IBM, though they may be manufacturing computers also, but at the same time, they provide IT consultancy programs also. Automobile manufacturers, the hardcore manufacture product, but they also provide after-sale services which are priced. That's just a separate product in itself. So services are important, not only service sector per se, but also as service product being supplied by manufacturing industries. And thirdly, all companies, all industries provide to some degree customer service. Some companies may be devoting a lot of time and energy on providing customer service, some may be doing it on a lesser level, but all companies to remain in the market have to provide some sort of customer service. So not only when we talk of marketing of services, when we talk of services per se, we are not only talking about this service sector which contributes almost 60% of India's GDP, but we also talk of service products being marketed by manufacturing companies and also customer service. So practically services would be of interest to all business units, whether they are in the service sector per se or manufacturing or in any other sector. So that's the basic reason why a separate course on marketing of services is required. But that means there has to be difference between service and the tangible good. That's why a separate course is required. Otherwise, the normal course on marketing would have taken care of the services also. So before going into the specific details of the services, in fact, I have structured my presentation for the next two sessions. Basically, I'll be showing you 20-25 slides, giving you basic inputs about services and devoting say 3 to 4 minutes at an average on each slide. But before moving to these slides, let me explain in brief why services require a different approach. How services are different from tangible goods, or what makes services different from goods and require them to be a separate area of study. This of course is the very basic element of why a course on services marketing is there. Services first and foremost, as compared to tangible goods, are intangible. That means, unlike tangible goods, which you buy, which you have in your homes, it may be consumer durables, it may be fast-moving consumer goods, consumer durables like say television or a VCR or of course now you have CD players or refrigerators, washing machines, all these are consumer durables. Or fast-moving consumer goods like say toothpaste, soap, detergents, oil, cooking oil, hair oil, all those things. Now all those are tangible goods. You can see them, touch them, have a feel, evaluate them before purchase, but services are intangible. You can't touch them, see them or feel them. In fact, one of the simplest definition given by someone for services is that services are something which cannot be dropped on your foot, which basically highlights the nature of intangibility of services. So when services are intangible in nature, it poses a lot of challenges for marketers, which we will be taking up a little bit later. Second point, second characteristics which make services different from tangible goods is inseparability. Unlike physical goods, which are manufactured in a factory, maybe then stored in a warehouse, then moved over to retail outlets and then sold, most of the services are produced and sold and consumed simultaneously. For example, for having a haircut, you have to go to the hair salon where the provider has to be there and you as a consumer would also be required to be there. So services are ordered, produced, consumed simultaneously. And this is true for most of the services. Third characteristics which distinguish service from tangible goods is heterogeneity. The tangible goods, continuing with the example of say television, you have put up a specific standards for manufacturing televisions. You have an assembly line for manufacturing them, set standards, and maybe you are producing 10,000 television sets each day, and you can be sure that all 10,000 plus minus some quality tolerances would be exactly of the same specifications. But in case of services, you cannot say that for surety. The quality of service may vary from provider to provider, may vary with the same provider even from different time to time. For example, the same teacher, maybe in his first class and maybe towards the end of the day, in the last class, may have different energy levels, may be providing a different sort of lecture. The same bank teller who is giving cash and there is a long line, right in the morning at 10 o'clock, his behavior may be different. At 2 o'clock, almost towards nearing the closing of the bank, his behavior may be different. Or two different tellers sitting side by side, the two may be providing different sort of services, whereas the company or the bank or the provider is the same. So services are heterogeneous, therefore implication being that managing service quality, how do you control service quality, that becomes a major issue. And last, and one of the most important issues why services require a different approach, is that services are perishable. And that poses a huge challenge to marketeers. What do we mean when we say services are perishable as compared to tangible goods? You take any tangible good, say a seasonal product like desert coolers. In Delhi, the demand for desert coolers would be say somewhere from April till say September, October. But that doesn't mean that you have to manufacture these coolers only during those 6 months. You can manufacture them very well in December, January, February, and keep storing them, so that whenever the demand is at peak, you would sell them off. But can you say the same for services? Say for example, during vacations, when children have vacation in May and June, there's a lot of demand for transportation services, on trains, on airlines. But is it possible for you to store seats when there's less demand in say examination time in March and keep them for May or June? Same with the airlines. In fact, when an airline and the aircraft takes off with say 20% empty seats, that capacity is lost forever. And unlike tangible goods, wherein if demand is low, you store them, and when demand is again picking up, you can dispose it off. In services, you cannot do the same. A management institute, for example, having say 500 seats, 1 year you have 450 students, but that doesn't mean next year you can have 550 students. That 50 seats which have been lost, they have been lost forever. You cannot cater for more than 500 seats in the next year. So, we have discussed 4 ways in which services are different from tangible goods. In the way that services are intangible, services are heterogeneous, services are inseparable, and services are perishable. Because of these 4 characteristics, we require a separate approach to marketing of services, because the way services are produced, consumed, and evaluated is different as compared to tangible goods. If you recollect, if you studied the basic course on marketing, that is MS6, you would be quite familiar with the term marketing mix. And in marketing, we talk of 4 P's as the marketing mix, wherein we talk about product, price, place, and promotion. These are the 4 P's of the marketing mix which a provider has to offer to the customer to satisfy his needs. But in case of services marketing, it is felt that these 4 P's are inadequate. They are required, but they do not fulfill the purpose, and we require something else. So having discussed the basic characteristics of services, now we move over to some specific points which you have to remember. It can be taken, as I said, taken up as a recap of the course on marketing of services, or you can treat it as a bird's eye view of the course on marketing of services. If you see this slide on your monitors, there's just a very simple statement that service is much more than processing customers and their orders. Of course, customer orders have to be processed, but in services it's more than that. It is the appearance of the facilities, the behavior of employees, the presence of other customers, and the impressions made when customers come into contact with all these elements. Now, if you carefully look at this slide, we are not only talking of processing customers, We are also talking of appearance of facilities. We are talking of employees and other customers. That means essentially we are talking of 3 additional elements. Now what are these 3 additional elements? Of course we have talked about basic 4 P's of marketing. Now I'll be talking about these additional 3 marketing mix elements. 1, the processes, the mechanisms, how the services are delivered. Basically the operations management part. Second, as is written on this slide, the appearance of the facilities. Appearance would include the physical buildings, would include the, say for example, uniform of the people who are serving the customers. So the the physical evidence element. So we have added 2 more elements: process, physical evidence, and the third one, the behavior of employees and the presence of other customers. That means the people element. So when we talk of services, in marketing mix we are talking of 7 P's in place of the traditional 4 P in the marketing of tangible goods, and the extended marketing mix for services therefore include the traditional 4 P's: product, price, place and promotion, and 3 additional marketing mix elements, the extended marketing mix elements required for services, which are process, physical evidence and people. In fact, in case of services, we say that services requires 3 different types of marketing. The external marketing, that is the traditional marketing between the company and the customers. The interactive marketing, that is when customer and the employees come into contact, that is interactive marketing. And third one, the internal marketing, which is of crucial importance in services marketing, that is between the management and the employees. So you can view services marketing as a sort of a triangle, whereas 3 vertices would be the company, that's the management, the customer and the employees, and 3 marketing would be external marketing, the traditional marketing, that means the interactive marketing and the internal marketing. So even if one of these sides of the triangle is not working properly, the entire triangle collapses. So in order for services marketing to succeed, all 3 elements, that is external marketing, that is internal marketing, and most importantly the interactive marketing, all 3 have to be in place for services marketing to be successful. Again, a very simple statement. In fact, all these slides would be carrying simple statements. I have deliberately not used any technical jargons and I have not used any complex models. So anyone who has not even gone through the services marketing course, this presentation would be useful to them as well. This slide's basically a simple one-liner. Customer satisfaction is a function of expectations and perceptions, both of which can be influenced by the marketeer. Now again, going to the basic principles of marketing. What's the basic objective of marketing? The basic objective of marketing is to provide an offering to the customer so that he is satisfied, he gets the value, and at the same time the organization also gets profits. Now satisfaction of the customer in case of services, as that slide showed you, is a basically function of what he thinks he should get, that is the expectations, and what he thinks he is getting, that is the perceptions. So that means the core of services marketing is managing these 2 components, the perceptions and the expectations. Now how do customers form perceptions in case of services? Again, you require a different approach in case of services as compared to tangible goods. Customer base their perceptions on 2 different ways, not only what he is getting, but also how he is getting it. That means not only the outcome, what he is getting, but the process also, how this outcome was achieved. To give a simple example, take health services. In a hospital, of course, the patient wants to be cured, but that's not the only thing. While he is in the hospital, he wants to be taken care of properly. So a customer of health services required not only cure, but the care also. Similarly, educational services, the student doesn't require just to get a degree, but how the educational thing is provided to him. An airline, a passenger, okay, wants to go from city A to city B, That's the main thing. Outcome, okay, he boarded the plane at Delhi and he wants to be at Bombay and he arrived at Bombay, but still he may be dissatisfied. Why? Because of the way in which the service was delivered. Maybe long queues, no proper attention on board, maybe stale food. Though he has reached Bombay in time, still he may not be satisfied. So in case of services, perception would depend upon the outcome, which is also called the technical quality, and the processes, also known as functional quality. So marketeer has to take care of both what is being delivered and how it is being delivered. Coming to second part, we have talked about perception. Second part is the expectation. On what basis do customers form their expectations? Again, as I say in all marketing courses, think yourself, empathize with the customer, think yourself as a customer, and then try to think what exactly the customer requires. Assuming yourself to be a customer of, say, restaurant. You are hungry and you want to go and have a meal at a restaurant. On what basis do you form your expectation? That what exactly you want. That's first and foremost, your own need. I'm not that hungry. I've got a scarcity of time. I want to have a quick bite. So your own need. Or I've got plenty of time. I have to go to movies, still 1 hour remaining, feeling damn hungry. So I want to have a full meal. So that means your own need would also determine what sort of expectation you have from the restaurant. Second, the word of mouth. Maybe some of your friend has told you that such and such a restaurant is an excellent restaurant. That means your expectation from that restaurant would be quite high. Or maybe if some of your friend has told, okay, that restaurant is not so good, but it's convenient near the theater. So when you go to that restaurant for having food, maybe your expectation may not be that high, maybe at a lower level. That means not only your expectations are framed by your own needs, but also by word of mouth. Another way how expectations are framed is by the image of the organization. If the organization has got an excellent image, your expectation would be high. If organizational image is not that good, expectation may be low. And fourthly, and very important from marketeer's point of view, expectations are also formed based on your marketing communication. And what do I mean by marketing communication? All sort of communication, whether it is advertising or whether it's communication at the point where services are delivered, any form of communication which marketeers have with the customers would also have an impact on how they frame their expectations. If you promise a lot, naturally the customers who would be coming to your premises would be having a very higher expectations. From marketeers' point of view, it's very important to note that as marketeers you can control both perceptions as well as expectations. And perceptions are framed by not only what is being delivered, but how it is being delivered. And expectations are framed by the customer's needs, by word of mouth, by image of the organization, and the marketing communication. The next slide relates to this fourth aspect of customer expectation, that's marketing communication. And this slide goes as follows. When advertising claims promise customers what the business cannot deliver, customers become disenchanted with the business, and management might conclude wrongly that advertising is a waste of time. That means you are promising the customer something which you cannot deliver, and you know it very well. So you have promised something based on which the customers frame their expectations, and then the reality is something different. That means there is a gap between what the customer expects based on your marketing communication and what is actually being delivered. So there is a gap between the expectations and perception, and the customer gets dissatisfied, and you as marketeer might think that your advertisement was a waste of money. So it's not exactly the blame to be passed on to advertisement, but it's basically the gap between what you promised and what you delivered. That's the root cause in this particular case. Maybe I'll go a step backwards and explain you a little bit more. I told that satisfaction hinges on customer expectation and perception. So it's the task of the marketeers to basically reduce the gap between these perceptions and expectations and to bridge this gap. The ideal situation would be the perceptions and expectations match, or rather, when we talk of customer delight, perception may even be higher than the expectations. But normally there is a gap between perception and expectation. But as marketeers, you should try to find out what's the reason for these gaps, why such a gap occurs. First and foremost, the management may not know what exactly the customer wants. If the management doesn't know what the customer wants, how can the organization deliver as per the customer needs? That's first and foremost reason for the gap between expectation and perception. And for that, marketeers should do market research, talk to customers, have good communication with their frontline employees who are in touch with the customers. So the frontline employees, that group is the best source of information as far as information on customers is concerned. Second is, okay, the management may know what exactly customer wants, but those are not translated into customer driven standards. Management may think, okay, it's not feasible for us, we don't have the resources to meet these requirements, or customer is asking for too much, let's not focus on that. So even despite knowing what the customer wants, you may not be planning to deliver as per those desires. That's another cause of that gap. The third reason why there could be a mismatch between expectations and perceptions of customers about service is, even if the management knows what the customer wants, even after translating them into customer driven service standards, still you may not be delivering as per those standards. That means there is a gap between the standards you have set and the service delivery which you are making. Possible reasons. Number of reasons for that. Could be related to human resources. That means your employees, their training, their motivation, their incentive system. The customers themselves could be one of the reasons. Customers are not playing their role properly. They are not properly educated as far as receiving that service is concerned. That could result into mismatch between service standards and service delivery. And the fourth gap, which I had shown in the slide itself, gap between what you are delivering and what you are promising. So in order to bridge the gap between what customer wants and his perceptions, you have to find out what the customer wants, translate them into customer driven service standards, deliver as per those standards, and communicate to the customers what you are delivering. In fact, some people say that in the marketing communication you should promise a little bit less than what you can deliver and then deliver more than what you have promised, thereby delighting the customers. For example, you promise that a courier may promise that we'll be delivering within 24 hours and actually deliver it in 20 hours. So you are promising something and delivering more than what you have promised. Now, why is it important that you deliver according to the expectations of the customers? Again, a very simple slide. Dissatisfied customers might not report their concerns to the service business, but they do tell their family, friends, and other acquaintances. And this is very important from services marketing point of view. Again, I'll tell you a little bit of the conceptual part to explain to you this particular concept better. Services, unlike tangible goods, cannot be tested in advance. So we have basically three different types of qualities. Search qualities, qualities which can be determined in advance of purchase. For example, if you want to buy a car, you can go to a car dealership, test drive the car, know how it works. If you want to buy a television set, you can go to an electronic retail outlet, just can have a look at the television set, what's the reception, what is the sound quality, how does it look like, and all those features you can test in advance. These are the search qualities. But in case of services, you can hardly do that. You want to travel by an airline, can you test it in advance? Or you want to go to a doctor, can you have a sample treatment? That's not possible. So services are rich in experience qualities. Qualities which you know only when you experience that particular service, unlike tangible goods which could be evaluated in advance. In fact, there are certain services which cannot be evaluated even after experiencing them, and that's why we talk of another quality, that's the credence quality. For example, health services. Even after you have consumed the service, you have been discharged from the hospital, still you are not sure what type of service you received. You may be having doubts whether the treatment which was given, whether that was required in the first place or not, whether diagnosis was correct or not. Similarly, in case of auto repairs, okay, after repair your vehicle is working fine, but still you may be thinking maybe there was just a small problem and what has been done and charged was not required. So even after getting that service, you are not sure about the quality of that service. So services as compared to tangible goods are rich in experience and credence qualities, whereas tangible goods are rich in such qualities. So when services are rich in experience and credence qualities, you go more by what your acquaintances, your friends, your relatives, your neighbors tell you about that particular service rather than the mass media or the advertisements. So this word of mouth becomes extremely important. Take for example going to a movie. Rather than going by advertisements, maybe if your neighbor or a friend tells you it's a very good movie, entertaining movie, maybe you'll go to see it, and a few people tell you it's not worthwhile, it's boring, it's waste of money, maybe even if initially you were planning to go to the movie, you may postpone or rather cancel your program altogether for going to that particular movie. So word of mouth in case of services is extremely important, and dissatisfied customers might not report their concern to the service business, but they do tell their families, friends and other acquaintances. That would mean a negative word of mouth. Therefore, marketers should never assume that customers who do not speak are happy customers. Maybe no one has come to complain to you and you may be very happy, okay, I'm doing extremely fine, but that may not be the case. Very few customers come to complain on their own, and of course if they are not satisfied, without any, on voluntary basis, voluntarily they will go and tell their friends, their acquaintances, their colleagues, their neighbors about the type of service they have received. So marketers have to make a special effort, because that's the next slide which says the greater majority of dissatisfied customers never complain to management or staff. Then what to do? They have to be encouraged to voice their dissatisfaction. So of course I am not advocating that you give a bad service and then ask them to complain and encourage them to complain. No. You provide good service, but still service is being inseparable. In real time you are delivering the service. Despite having all precautions, all systems in place, something may go wrong and something will go wrong. Nothing wrong in that. It will happen in case of services. But how quickly you respond to that, that's important. In fact, I would say there are 4 different types of scenario. As I said, services may go wrong and customers may complain, may not complain. So it becomes basically 2 by 2 matrix. No service failure, no customer complaining. That's one situation. No service failure, still customer complains. Second situation. Service failure, customer doesn't complain. Third situation. Service failure and customer complains. The fourth situation. So as marketeers, how do you go about dealing with this 4th situation? First, okay, the ideal, the wished for situation. No service failure, no complaint. Nothing to do, no action to be taken. Maybe only action required is pat on your back. You are doing an excellent job, but beware. This particular segment of this 2 by 2 matrix may be very small as compared to what you might be thinking. In many cases you might be thinking that you have done an excellent job and customer is not complaining, but maybe there was some service failure which you are not aware of and the customer is not complaining. Second situation, no service failure but still customer complains. Can you think of any situation like this? No mistake, but still the customer is complaining. try to think of a situation like this. Can this really happen? That without any mistake on your part, still customer may be complaining. Yes, it can happen. Say for example, let me take the case of IGNOU students. As per the requirements to appear in the term and exam, a student has to fill up examination form by 31st of March and with some late fees later on. If a student doesn't fill up the form, maybe he didn't know it was his first semester, he was not fully aware how to go about it, he had paid the fees and he thought, no, he'll be sitting in the examination. But since he has not filled up the examination form and paid the required fees, he was not allowed to sit in the exam. Now, nothing wrong on university's part, because rules were given in the student handbook, but still student feels dissatisfied. Or for example, another case, normal time, say for airlines, 30 minutes before departure of flight, the counter closes. All the counters would close before 30 minutes. Say during, yeah, please go ahead. We have got a call from Junjunu.
Yeah, please go ahead. We have got a call from Junjunu. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
Please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, please go ahead. सर मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है सर जी जो HRD है ह्यूमन रिसोर्स डेवलपमेंट अपना PG डिप्लोमा है ये MBA में इंक्लूड है क्या? ये हाँ जी
आपका और कोई सवाल है? इज दैट द ओनली क्वेश्चन?
जैसे मान लो हम सर इस जैसे हम पहले पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट डिप्लोमा इन ह्यूमन रिसोर्स डेवलपमेंट कर लेते हैं तो MBA करने में उसमें कोई छूट मिलती है क्या?
आपका बहुत एक बेसिक सवाल है. आप जो भी आप प्लीज अब लाइन डिस्कनेक्ट कर दीजिए, मैं आपको जवाब देता हूं. आपने एक बेसिक सवाल पूछा कि अगर आप एक डिप्लोमा कर रहे हैं, PG डिप्लोमा इन HRM, उसका आपको MBA के अंदर कोई क्रेडिट मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा. जैसा कि मैंने शुरू में भी कहा था, MBA प्रोग्राम में देयर आर 4 डिफरेंट स्पेशलाइजेशंस, HRM, marketing, finance and operations, and I talked basically about marketing. I didn't touch upon the other 3 specializations. And admission to the management program, आप चाहे PGDIM में एडमिशन लें, चाहे MBA में लें, चाहे जो आप बात कर रहे हैं PGD HRM में लें, ये सब एडमिशन एक एंट्रेंस टेस्ट के थ्रू ही है. तो एक बार अगर आपने एंट्रेंस टेस्ट लेकर आपने 5 कोर्स PGD HRM के कर लिए हैं, तो आपको PGD HRM डिप्लोमा मिल जाएगा. उसके बाद अगर आप कंटिन्यू करना चाहें अपना MBA प्रोग्राम, MBA करने के लिए कुल 21 कोर्स करने होते हैं. तो 5 अगर आपने HRM में कर लिए हैं और आपको MBA भी HRM में ही चाहिए, तो आपको 21 की बजाय 16 और कोर्सेज करने पड़ेंगे. तो ये 5 कोर्सेज जो स्पेशलाइजेशन वाले हैं HRM एरिया के, वो आपने क्योंकि PGD HRM में कर लिए हैं, आपको वो दोबारा करने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. तो MBA करने के लिए रिक्वायर टू कंप्लीट 21 कोर्सेज, out of which 5 should be from the specialization stream which you have selected, and in case you have selected HRM stream and you have completed PGD HRM by doing 5 courses in that particular stream, in that case to complete MBA you have to do additional 16 courses. आपको दोबारा 21 कोर्सेज नहीं करने पड़ेंगे और इन 5 कोर्सेज का डेफिनेटली आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा. आई होप आई हैव रिस्पॉन्डेड टू योर क्वेरी and I'll continue with the discussions which we were having. I was talking of 4 different scenarios. Second scenario I was discussing wherein no mistake from company's point of view, but still customers complain. I gave you one example of how a student who has not filled up the examination form could not sit in the exam and was dissatisfied, where is nothing wrong on the university's point of view. Similarly, in airline, for example, the check-in counters close 30 minutes before departure. But maybe due to security reason during the period, say 15th August or around 26th January, security reasons, the government decides that counters would be closing 45 minutes before departure. And on the ticket it is written that counters would close 45 minutes before departure. But a regular passenger who knows that they close 30 minutes before the departure and reaches accordingly, and 40 minutes before the departure and the counter is closed. He becomes dissatisfied. Whereas nothing wrong on the airline's part. But again, the service provider cannot wish away his responsibility in such a case. Here the strategy should be customer education. In case, the first example I had given, maybe the university should highlight right in the program guide, through contact sessions, through all communication, the student has to fill up the examination form, only then he will be eligible to sit in the exam. Similarly, airlines, since this is a departure from the traditional 30 minutes closure, they should highlight it maybe on the tickets also in a big way, or it could be sent through SMS or through customer care centers. It should be informed to the customer. So consumer or the customer education becomes a priority. The third case wherein service failure but the customer doesn't complain, in that case one of the potent tools can be service guarantees. If a guarantee is given to the customer, if a courier is not delivered to you within 24 hours, you need not pay, or whatever you have paid would be refunded to you. So instead of 24 hours, if it is delivered in 25 hours, customer is definitely going to complain to you, since you had promised through a guarantee that if it's not delivered within 24 hours, he'll get his payment back. So service guarantee is a potent tool for encouraging customers to complain in case of service failure. And the fourth one, there is a service failure and the customer complains also. In that case, you have to go in for service recovery. Something has gone wrong, how you can recover that. And managing customer complaints is one of the key issues in services marketing, because it provides you two distinct advantages. One, when the customer complains, he provides you an opportunity to rectify the error which you have committed and make him satisfied so that he stays with you and spreads a positive word of mouth. And secondly, if repeated complaints are coming for the same mistake, that means there is something wrong with your systems. That means by having a proper complaint management, not only you can satisfy the immediate customer who has complained, but also improve upon your systems. So treat complaints as gifts, and the one who complains, treat him as your friend. So that's a basic mantra which the marketer, and especially marketers of services, should keep in mind. They should not treat a complaint as something which is undesired or which is not wanted for and try to go away from that. In fact, people have to be encouraged, and good marketers have found out innovative ways of encouraging customers to complain. And once complaint comes, it's dealt with on utmost priority, and it's ensured the customer who has complained goes satisfied and spreads a positive word of mouth. With this particular slide, I'd like to close this first session. We'll continue our discussions in the second session also, but again, I'd request you, do not wait for any particular section or any particular session to be over for asking your questions. You can ask your questions at any time, maybe right in the beginning of the next session. You can pose your questions. In fact, the beauty of this particular technology is the interactive part only. So I look forward to receiving your questions. We will have a 15 minutes break. So we'll meet again, and 3:30 we'll continue our discussion on services marketing, and I would look forward to receiving your queries. Thank you.